Gary had never been one to snoop through his wife's belongings. In the 10 years he had been married to Linda, they had built a life marked by mutual respect, honesty, and a comfortable sort of rhythm. They were both in their mid-30s, each with a stable career, each dedicated to the life they had built together. When disputes arose, they settled them with patience. When they talked about the future, they did so with optimism. Their friends described them as the calm couple who knew each other inside and out. He would have never imagined discovering something so puzzling while searching for a scarf she had misplaced. Linda had told him that she might have left it in the closet. With her rush to head off for an early meeting that day, she had asked if he would mind looking for it and bringing it to her office if he found it. He had obliged without a second thought. He padded into their bedroom, sliding the closet door open, and rummaged through the racks of her dresses, blouses, and skirts. He knew her favorite outfits, recognized the colors she most enjoyed wearing, so when he pulled the clothes aside and a panel in the back of the closet shifted, his curiosity took over. The scarf was nowhere in sight, and he wondered why the panel moved so easily. At first he thought it was a structural quirk in the old house they had purchased. He placed his hand on the back wall, pressed gently, and felt it give way. He paused. Confusion flickered in his eyes. He pressed again, a little more firmly, until the concealed panel clicked open. It looked like a secret compartment, large enough to store items behind the normal row of clothes. His first instinct was to think Linda might have hidden something of sentimental or monetary value. They had a security box for important documents, but maybe she had another safe place for items she treasured. Curiosity mingled with a slight sense of intrusion, but he reasoned that Linda had asked him to search for the scarf. She knew he might discover a thing or two while looking. He slid the panel aside more fully and noticed a soft light pouring into a small space behind the main closet area. Inside, he saw neatly hung clothes protected in garment bags, along with rows of shoes in his size. Lingerie sets, delicate and clearly new, were folded with utmost care on a small shelf. There was also a tote bag stuffed with unopened cosmetics, lipstick, eyeshadow palettes, brushes, and more. The entire discovery felt surreal. These items were obviously too large for Linda. He held up one of the dresses in front of himself, arms spread wide to gauge its width. It was slender but seemed to match his measurements more closely than hers. An uneasy chill passed through him. Puzzlement turned to suspicion. He wondered why Linda would keep these things hidden. He entertained wild ideas for a moment. The only logical explanation was that she must have planned something that involved him. But why? It was hard for him to piece together the reason behind this stash. He turned his attention to a small spiral-bound notebook sitting atop a pile of folded stockings. When he picked it up, he saw Linda's neat handwriting on the cover. His name was written in large letters, Gary. His breath caught in his throat. A wave of conflicting feelings crashed over him. Shock and curiosity fought with guilt over reading something that so obviously was meant to remain secret. But it was his name written on the cover. Slowly, he sat down on the bedroom floor, carefully opening to the first page. In short lines, Linda described a hope she had carried with her for a long time. She wrote about how she believed that exploring a different side of appearance, clothes, gestures, styles, could bring fresh excitement to their steady life. She feared it would sound strange if she introduced it out of the blue. She worried about how he might react. The next pages mentioned details about sizing, brand preferences, and how she had methodically acquired these pieces whenever she traveled for conferences, discreetly packing them so Gary wouldn't notice. There were carefully compiled notes about colors she thought would suit his complexion, shoes that might fit his feet, styles that echoed garments he sometimes complimented her on. The entire plan appeared thorough, as though she had spent months, maybe even years, fine-tuning it. Gary felt his heart pound. A swirl of embarrassment blossomed in his chest as he read the final lines. Linda had written how she planned to propose this idea. She wanted it to be a gentle approach, with him in mind. She found it important that he not feel judged or forced. She wanted him to feel comfortable. Yet, here he was, reading it all on his own, behind her back, months, perhaps even years, before she might have felt ready to show him. Closing the notebook, he stared at the dresses, the shoes, the little makeup kit. An internal argument erupted in his head. Part of him felt like these items represented a significant leap into territory he had never considered. Another part of him felt a flicker of intrigue. He had occasionally noticed a curiosity about clothing, but he had never admitted that curiosity to himself or to anyone else. It was something he filed away in fleeting thoughts, never imagining Linda might be thinking along the same lines. Gary's stomach twisted when he thought, with sudden alarm, that this could be about her more than it was about him. Could Linda be stashing these clothes for someone else? Another scenario, someone who resembled him in build, flickered through his mind, but he dismissed it quickly. The notebook was written to him, about him, and in Linda's own words. The entire situation felt like he had stumbled into a secret plan for them both, but one in which he had been left in the dark until now. He closed the panel, placed everything back as carefully as he could, and left the notebook where he found it. Walking out of the closet, he pressed his back against the bedroom wall, heart hammering. Confusion, curiosity, frustration, and even an odd sense of flattery passed through him. He did not know if he should call Linda right away and confront her, or if it would be better to wait until she returned from work that evening. The rest of his day was a blur. He found the scarf, tossed over a chair, not even in the closet, and drove it to her office. He tried to keep his expression calm when Linda greeted him with a smile in the lobby. She looked a bit stressed, but also thankful. "You're a lifesaver," she whispered. "I needed that scarf for a small photo shoot we're doing today for the marketing campaign." He just gave a smile and nodded. 1,000 questions burned in his chest, but he held his tongue. She hurried back to her co-workers, and Gary returned home, unsettled and unsure of how the evening might unfold. When 5 o'clock arrived, Linda walked through the front door with her usual call of, "I'm home," and set her briefcase on the kitchen counter. Gary had barely looked up from his seat at the dining table. He was sipping a mug of tea, foot jiggling restlessly beneath the table's edge. She noticed something in his posture. Her eyebrows drew together. "Is everything okay?" she asked. He motioned for her to sit next to him. She studied him carefully, a trace of concern illuminating her expression. He exhaled slowly, hands wrapped around his mug, gaze dropping to the tabletop. "I found something in your closet," he said at last, voice low. She tensed, but tried to keep her composure. "What do you mean?" "I was looking for the scarf," he explained, "and I saw the hidden panel in the back." He paused, watching as the color drained a little from her face. "I found dresses, shoes, lingerie, all in my size. And I found your notebook." Linda's eyes closed for a moment. She pressed her lips together, breathing in. There was no denial, no false explanation. Instead, she rose from the chair, walked around the kitchen once in quiet agitation, and came back. Finally, she said, "I didn't want you to find out like this." Gary could see the fear in her eyes. He felt his heart twist at how vulnerable she appeared. "So it was meant for me," he said. "All of it?" "Yes," Linda whispered. "I wanted to, slowly talk to you. I know it might sound really unusual. I've been wrestling with how to bring it up. It's something I've been imagining for a while, an idea that maybe we could try something new. I just couldn't think of the right way to approach it. And now I guess you know everything." "Why?" he asked, letting the question hover. He needed to understand her reasoning. Why did you think I'd want to wear any of that?" She folded her hands on the table. "Remember that night last year when we were joking about how I wondered what I'd look like if I wore your clothes, and you said you might not look too bad in a dress yourself? You laughed it off afterward, but I saw this flicker in your face, like you weren't entirely joking. I started paying attention to your reactions whenever people on TV or in films wore clothes of another style, or whenever a storyline about that came up. I noticed you never looked uncomfortable. Sometimes you seemed fascinated. And we've been together so long that I wondered if there was a part of you you've never felt safe exploring. I didn't know if I was right, but I wanted to try." Gary's cheeks felt warm, remembering that offhand comment. "You read a lot into that," he said, sounding uncertain. She shrugged. "I may have. Perhaps I was projecting my own curiosity too. I thought it could bring some new spark for us. It's not that I think our marriage is in trouble or anything, but, we have such a routine. We cook, we watch movies, we go on a date every other week. Our life is comfortable, but I wanted to add a layer of excitement. I read online about couples trying new things, and I kept coming across stories about exploring different appearances, roles, or styles. So I let the idea swirl in my mind. Eventually, I just started buying little items, the dresses, the shoes, the makeup, and then it became a small secret mission. I told myself, one day I'll show Gary, and we'll see if he's even willing to try it out." He leaned back in the chair, letting out a low sigh. "All this time," he said, "I had no idea. I feel a bit caught off guard." "I'm sorry," Linda murmured. "I didn't want you to stumble upon it this way. I wanted to talk to you when the time was right, when I knew the best way to not scare or upset you. I know it's unusual." A tense silence pulled between them. Gary's mind raced. He felt a swirl of apprehension and a curious spark about the possibility that Linda had noticed something in him he barely acknowledged himself. "It's not that I'm against any of this," he finally said, grappling for the right words. I don't know how I feel." Her hand found his across the table. "I'd never force you to do it. But if you have even a small bit of willingness to try on some of those clothes and see how you feel, I'd be by your side. I'd help you. We'd just see where it goes." His heart pounded. He could see Linda was nervous, close to tears from the vulnerability. He squeezed her hand gently. "Let's go look at it together," he suggested, voice tight. "Maybe if we do that, I'll have a better idea of how I feel. I want you to walk me through your plans." A hesitant smile turned up the corner of her lips. "We can do that. But if at any point you want to stop, just say so." They headed to the bedroom, flipped on the overhead light, and Gary gently slid open the closet door. Linda knelt and pressed the secret panel open. She revealed the carefully stored garments once more. Standing beside Gary, she opened one garment bag that contained a dark blue cocktail dress, simple but elegant, with a modest neckline and a knee-length skirt. She lifted it from the hanger, letting the fabric drape over her arm. "This was one of the first dresses I bought," she said softly. "I wanted something that would look good with your figure, something not too flamboyant. I know you're not into flashy designs." She traced the smooth material with her fingertips, gaze flicking to Gary to gauge his reaction. His eyes took in the garment, noticing how carefully she had selected it. He recognized the brand name from a store Linda liked, but never shopped at much due to higher prices. The knowledge that she had invested this much time, effort, and money sank into him. "It's nice," he murmured. Linda exhaled slowly, returning the dress to its hanger. "I know you might not believe this, but I wanted you to feel calm and safe while trying them on. So I made these notes in the notebook, hoping to figure out the perfect time. I even wrote lines for how I might bring it up casually, so you wouldn't panic. Then I'd suggest we buy a few items together. Only after that was done would I reveal that I already had this huge wardrobe waiting. Gary cracked a wry smile at the thoroughness. You certainly planned everything in detail. She blushed a little. I did. I know I can be a perfectionist. They turned their attention to the lingerie neatly folded on the shelf. Gary's cheeks grew warm. The lace looked delicate, carefully chosen in colors ranging from black to soft pink. He cleared his throat. You expected me to wear that too? Linda's breath caught, but she nodded. I wanted it to be part of the experience if you felt comfortable with it. If not, I'd never push you to do it. But there's something about undergarments that can affect how you feel overall. It's not just about the surface look. It's about feeling fully dressed in a new style. He wasn't sure how to respond. He felt a strange flutter in his stomach, like a mix of nervousness and something almost exciting. The swirl of emotions confused him. I won't lie, he said, voice a bit shaky. This is a lot, but part of me doesn't want to just shove this aside. Linda's expression softened, relief filtering into her eyes. Then maybe we can do a little exploration. We can set clear boundaries, see how it feels. If you ever hate it, we'll stop. Her reassurance helped loosen some of the tension in his shoulders. Let's do it, he said after a pause, his voice trembling slightly. I'm not promising anything definite, but I'm willing to try one outfit, just to see. Linda placed a warm hand on his shoulder. Thank you. In her eyes, Gary saw gratitude shining brightly, mixed with uncertainty. This was new for her too. It was an idea she had nurtured for a long time, but she didn't know how it would play out in reality. They closed the closet and decided to have dinner first. They needed the normalcy of their nightly routine, chopping vegetables together, discussing the day's events at the office. But every now and then, they exchanged loaded glances that hinted at what lay ahead. After dinner, Linda disappeared into the bedroom for a moment. When she returned, she informed Gary she had laid out the first outfit for him to try, just to dip his toes into the experience. He walked in and saw the dark blue dress lying on the bed next to a pair of matching low heels. Linda had placed undergarments, stockings, and a small kit of makeup to the side. It was all meticulously arranged. Gary inhaled slowly. Linda sensed his hesitation. She came forward and said, "We can skip the lingerie this time if that's too much." He deliberated for a moment, but then shook his head. "No, I'll go all in for this first try." He tried to lighten the mood with a half smile. "I guess I'd prefer to see how it all feels at once." She gave a little nod. With some awkwardness, Gary excused himself to the bathroom to change, feeling uncertain about being seen in the process. He closed the door, took a moment to compose himself, and then stripped off his daily clothes, piece by piece, until he stood in front of the mirror. The underwear Linda had left was made of a soft, smooth material that felt foreign against his skin, yet it fit him well. When he pulled up the stockings, he felt their snug, delicate grip around his thighs. He swallowed hard, heart pounding as he reached for the dress. He carefully slipped it over his head, tugging the skirt into place. In the mirror, he saw a reflection so unusual that it made him stare. The neckline revealed the broader build of his shoulders in a way that contrasted with the graceful drape of the dress, and yet it did not look as strange as he had anticipated. His figure in the mirror was, of course, different from a typical figure for that garment, but something about it wasn't entirely off-putting. If anything, it was intriguing. He let out a breath, then wrestled with the zipper on the side. After a bit of twisting, he managed to fasten it. The dress hugged him gently, not too tight, not too loose. The length came just above his knees. His calves peered out from beneath the skirt, leading down to the line of the stockings. He wobbled a bit as he slipped his feet into the low heels. The height was modest, but still enough to make him feel a shift in posture. "Linda," he called out, voice a little quavery. "I guess I'm ready." She knocked softly on the door. "May I come in?" He paused, then opened it. Linda stepped forward, taking in the sight of him in the dress. A range of emotions played across her face: curiosity, admiration, perhaps a bit of nerves. "I can't believe you're actually wearing it," she whispered, stepping closer. "How do you feel?" He gave a shaky laugh. "Strange. A bit exposed, I guess, but not necessarily in a bad way." He cleared his throat. "And it's tighter than I'm used to, obviously." Linda nodded understandingly. "We can try something looser if you want, but you look good in that color." She studied him. Her gaze was neither mocking nor pitiful. It held genuine interest and warmth. That alone helped ease some of his tension. "No, it's fine," Gary said. He ran a hand down the side of the dress. "It's interesting." She gently guided him toward the bed, where the makeup sat in a little kit. "We can skip this if you'd prefer," she offered again, giving him a choice. He stared at the small array of cosmetics: foundation, eyeshadow, lipstick, mascara. "I'll let you do a little," he said, voice still uncertain. "But not too much." Linda nodded. "Just enough to give you a sense of how it transforms your appearance." She motioned for him to sit on the edge of the bed. With careful, patient movements, she applied a light layer of foundation to even out his complexion, brushed a subtle brown eyeshadow across his lids, and gave him the faintest hint of mascara. Finally, she added a muted shade of lipstick, nothing too loud. When he rose to look in the full-length mirror, he was astonished. He wasn't unrecognizable. This wasn't some radical transformation that eliminated all traces of his own face. It was, however, a genuine shift in how he appeared. He found himself studying the reflection a long time. He noticed how Linda's hands had been steady, careful, like she was painting a delicate portrait. Now she stood behind him, meeting his gaze in the mirror. "It's interesting, right?" Linda asked softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Yeah," Gary managed to say. He turned to face her, noticing how the skirt swayed. He felt the smooth material brush against his stockings. "I don't even know what words I'd use for this feeling." She smiled, her eyes brimming with a cautious hope. "I just want you to know that whatever you're feeling, it's okay. This is just an experiment. It doesn't have to define anything permanently." He nodded, stepping away from the mirror. Standing still, he realized how different it felt to stand in heels, even if they were low. He shifted his weight. "What now?" he asked. Linda looked around, as though searching for the next step. "We could just spend the evening at home like this, maybe watch some TV, let you see how comfortable you are in the outfit. Or we can take it off right away if that's what you want." He found himself reluctant to remove it so soon. Strange as it was, he wanted to test how it felt moving around in these garments. "Let's go watch something," he said, surprising himself with the decision. Linda beamed at him. She walked with him into the living room, and they settled on the couch. She tried to keep things casual, though she couldn't help but peek at him out of the corner of her eye. Gary, for his part, fumbled a bit, feeling the snugness of the dress whenever he shifted his seat cushion. Each time he leaned forward to grab the remote from the coffee table, the sensation of the skirt pulling across his thighs sent a ripple of awareness through him. But he began to relax bit by bit. As the evening wore on, they found themselves occasionally exchanging glances and hesitant smiles. Eventually, Gary murmured, "I appreciate that you thought I might be open-minded about this, but why go to all this trouble? You mentioned wanting to add excitement, but this is a big leap, Linda." She breathed in, choosing her words carefully. "I love the life we have, but I don't want us to lose any spark that might be waiting to be tapped. Also, I've had my own fascination with style and presentation. I wanted to explore that fascination with you, not by myself. It's a collaboration, but mostly, I suspected you might be a little curious. I could have been wrong, but I was willing to take that chance." His gaze flicked to the floor. "Maybe a small part of me was curious," he admitted. "I never really considered acting on it, though." Linda reached for his hand. "I know. I just hoped that if we did it together, you might enjoy it." When bedtime rolled around, Gary carefully changed back into his usual clothes, gently removing the makeup with wipes Linda handed him. He hung the dress on the closet door, feeling an odd attachment to it now that he had worn it for an evening. Linda watched quietly, letting him move at his own pace. She knew this was not something to rush. That night, as they lay in bed, neither one fell asleep quickly. Gary stared up at the ceiling, recalling the sensation of the stockings against his legs. The entire day felt like a surreal dream. He wondered what the next step would be, or if there would be a next step at all. The morning arrived with a sense of unresolved tension. Over breakfast, they danced around the topic until Gary took the initiative to speak. "I want to give it another try. Maybe try some different outfits, see how it feels. But I also want to be sure we're talking openly, so neither of us is guessing what the other person needs or expects." Linda nodded, relieved. "That sounds like a smart approach." They agreed to schedule a quiet weekend together, free from other obligations, so they could dedicate time to this exploration. The days leading up to that weekend passed by in a strange mix of normalcy and underlying anticipation. Gary went to work, joined calls, handled meetings. Linda went about her tasks. Yet in the back of their minds, the hidden closet compartment lingered, as did the promise they made to each other. When Saturday morning rolled around, they started the day with coffee in the kitchen. Then they went to the bedroom, opened the secret panel, and pulled out several different outfits Linda had organized: casual skirts, a couple of blouses that might fit him, and a set of sweats in a bright color. The variety surprised him. "I thought I only saw dresses," he remarked. She laughed lightly. "I collected all kinds of items, just in case you preferred something less formal than a cocktail dress." He appreciated her thoughtfulness, even if the extravagance of it still stunned him. One by one, they sorted through the garments, placing them in piles: dresses, skirts, tops, loungewear. Linda demonstrated how certain pieces could be paired, explaining color coordination. Gary listened, a bit overwhelmed, but also oddly engaged. At last, they decided Gary would try on a casual skirt and blouse combination first. It felt less dramatic than the formal dress from before, but still a definite change from his usual jeans and t-shirt. He eyed the blouse. It was soft, a pastel pink, and he couldn't recall ever wearing that hue before. Linda handed it to him with a small smile. He changed into the outfit, again opting to wear the stockings and a different pair of shoes, flats this time, which were more comfortable than the heels. Then they sat on the bed as Linda did a touch of makeup. She showed him how to lightly brush it on himself. "If you want to learn," she said, "I'm happy to teach you, so you can do it on your own if you ever feel like it." Her words resonated in the air. "If you ever feel like it." The implication that he might adopt this style again, alone, was surprising, but he nodded, determined to keep an open mind. The process of applying makeup, while not complicated for a more minimal look, still felt intricate. She taught him how to hold the applicator, how to blend the foundation, how to lightly brush on the eyeshadow. He found his hands trembling at times. Despite the nervousness, he enjoyed the detail-oriented process. As Linda guided him, he sensed her excitement. She seemed genuinely pleased to share this aspect of presentation with him, to show him a new approach to style. When he finished, he examined himself in the mirror. The outfit looked simpler than the dress, but it still shifted the way he felt. He didn't want to name the emotion. It wasn't simply joy, nor was it merely embarrassment. It was a swirl of newness and vulnerability. Linda stood behind him, hands on his shoulders. She met his gaze in the mirror. "You look adorable in that blouse," she said quietly, trying to keep her tone light. He gave a half smirk. "I think adorable is a stretch, but thank you." They spent the rest of the day indoors, not ready to venture outside. Linda arranged a little cooking session in the kitchen, showing Gary how to move in a skirt so he wouldn't trip over the material. They prepared a simple lunch, chatting idly. Occasionally, Linda would offer an observation on how a slight adjustment in posture or walk might make the outfit feel more natural. Gary tried to heed her advice, even if he still felt odd. Midway through the afternoon, Gary sat on the couch, posture tense, hands folded in his lap. Linda joined him, legs folded beneath her. A moment of heaviness settled between them as Gary took a breath. "Linda, do you like seeing me like this because it makes you see me in a different way? Does it change the dynamic for you?" She considered the question. "I think it deepens how I see you, but not in a way that replaces who you've always been. It's more like an additional possibility for our relationship. And yes, it's something I find fascinating. Maybe I'm excited by the novelty. Maybe I enjoy seeing a softer side to your style. I'm not fully sure yet." He chewed on that, feeling the swirl of emotions rise. "What if I hate it one day? Or what if it makes me feel confused in ways I'm not ready for?" Her gaze softened. "Then we'll talk about it. We'll figure out if it's something we set aside or handle in small doses. I'm not demanding it become a permanent part of our life. My main goal was to open a door. That's all." He breathed out, nodding slowly. "I appreciate that." Throughout the rest of the weekend, they dipped in and out of these sessions, never pushing too hard. Sometimes Gary would strip back down to his standard clothes, and they'd watch a movie or go for a walk around the block. Then they'd return, and he might try on another item. By Sunday evening, they both recognized that something fundamental had taken place. They had shared an experience neither had broached before, forging a deeper connection built on honesty, but also uncertainty. That night, Linda closed the secret panel, placing the clothes back with care, and said, "I hope this hasn't overwhelmed you." Gary shook his head. "It's a lot, yes, but I'm not regretting it. I'm still sorting my thoughts, but it hasn't been a negative experience. Actually, it's been..." He paused, searching for a word that didn't sound trite. "It's been surprising," she responded with a gentle smile. "I'm glad to hear that." Over the next few weeks, they fell into a steady rhythm. Gary didn't dive into the hidden wardrobe every day, but he did find himself drawn to it occasionally. Some nights, after work, Linda would gently suggest, "If you'd like to try that comfy sweater and leggings combo, it's there waiting." Sometimes he would accept, changing into those clothes and then quietly joining her in the living room for an evening of reading or listening to music. On other evenings, he politely declined, preferring his usual jeans and t-shirt. Their conversations became more open. Gary shared aspects of these experiences that he found enjoyable or perplexing. Linda listened intently, occasionally offering an interpretation. She didn't press him to define anything in grand terms. She simply provided support and reassurance. That willingness to give him space and let him set his own pace allowed him to keep exploring. One Friday evening, they decided to go a step further. Linda proposed a trip to a nearby town for a weekend getaway. She brought up the idea that he might want to wear some of these outfits there if he felt ready to be seen beyond the confines of their home. The notion unsettled him at first. "In public?" he asked, voice rising slightly. "I'm not sure if I can handle stares or judgments." She reached for his hand. "We don't have to go anywhere crowded. Maybe just a quiet cafe or a nature trail. We can pick places where you might feel comfortable. And if it's too stressful, we won't do it." He mulled it over, tension evident in the line of his jaw. The thought of stepping outside in any of these items, even the more casual androgynous ones, made his heart hammer. Yet a seed of curiosity tugged at him. What would it feel like to break free of the fear and simply exist outside the house? He finally nodded. "Let's go to that small lake you mentioned. There's a bed and breakfast near it, right?" She smiled brightly. "Yes, it's a peaceful spot. We can walk around the lake, maybe rent a little boat. If we see other people, it likely won't be a big crowd." "Okay," he agreed, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. So that weekend, they set off on a 2-hour drive to a tranquil lakeside village. The bed and breakfast was cozy, with floral wallpaper and a wraparound porch. They arrived in the late afternoon. Linda carried their suitcase inside while Gary took in the serene environment. Birds chirped in the nearby trees. The water glistened under the mild sun. The next morning, Linda coaxed him gently. "Maybe we can take a stroll by the lake before breakfast. Would you like to wear something comfortable from the secret stash?" She laughed softly at her own phrase. "Though I guess it's not so secret anymore." He swallowed. "All right, but something that won't draw too much attention. Maybe that loose sweater and those jeans you got, the pair that's a bit more fitted." She nodded, rummaging through the suitcase they had packed. They had tucked a couple of items from the hidden wardrobe among his usual clothes, just in case. The sweater was a soft cream color, the jeans a slightly snug cut that emphasized his legs more than his typical pair. It was a subtle shift in style, but enough to give that feeling of change. In the safety of their room, he slipped into the outfit, then looked in the mirror. He opted not to apply any makeup this time. "I think this is okay," he said, trying to gauge whether it appeared conspicuous. "You look fine," Linda reassured him. "It's a casual, gender-neutral look. Don't worry." Stepping outside, Gary felt a rush of nerves. They walked along a winding path that led to the edge of the lake. The soft morning light cast a glow over the water. They saw a couple of older folks fishing on the opposite bank, but nobody else was close enough to pay attention to what he was wearing. "You all right?" Linda asked, noticing him fidget with the hem of his sweater. He nodded, though his voice was tight. "Yes, just adjusting." She slipped her arm through his. "You're doing great." They continued strolling, the conversation drifting to lighter topics, work responsibilities, a possible vacation they might take to visit friends. As they approached a wooden pier that jutted out over the water, Gary took a seat at the very end, legs dangling above the gentle ripples. Linda settled beside him, leaning her head on his shoulder. He felt the tension slowly uncoil. This was manageable. Nobody was gawking. The world hadn't imploded. He was simply wearing slightly different clothes in public, enjoying a quiet moment with the person he loved. After a while, they returned to the bed and breakfast for a modest breakfast of eggs and toast. Later in the day, they rented a small boat. Gary wore the same outfit, plus a jacket. The sun sparkled on the surface of the water as Linda rowed them out, both of them sharing bits of laughter when they found themselves going in circles. Gary tried rowing too, but he couldn't stop the boat from veering. Linda teased him good-naturedly. Despite his initial anxiety, the weekend turned into a tender adventure. Back home, they continued this new pattern. Sometimes, Gary experimented with the hidden wardrobe. Other times, he did not. Over the following months, they discovered a new rhythm. Linda never rushed him to label his experiences. She never mocked him if he found himself struggling or uncertain. And Gary, for his part, let himself be guided by genuine curiosity rather than fear. One evening, as they were winding down from the day, Gary slipped on one of the dresses. He looked at himself in the mirror, noticing how his frame filled it differently from the mannequin slim images he saw in magazines. Still, He recognized a certain elegance, the swirl of thoughts about who he was or what this meant. He pushed them aside. Instead, he walked out into the living room where Linda was curled on the couch. Her eyes sparkled when she saw him. He sat beside her, resting his head in her lap, and she gently ran her fingers through his hair. "You know," he said softly, eyes flicking up to meet hers, "I never would have gone down this road if it weren't for you. And at first I was furious that you had done it all behind my back. But now, I see you did it because you cared, even if it was a risky move." Linda's voice was gentle. "I didn't do it perfectly. I kept it a secret for a long time, which was probably unfair. I really did want to introduce you to something I suspected might intrigue you, but I was afraid of your reaction, so I planned, maybe too meticulously." He gave a small, thoughtful nod. "I'm not sure how everything will look going forward, but I'm glad we tried. Part of me is still in flux, but there's also an odd sense of relief." He paused, reflecting. "Anyway, I'm just glad we're in this together." She leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to his forehead. "Me too." They let the evening stretch out, talking about everyday life, what they might cook tomorrow, how her next work project was shaping up, what show they should binge watch next. All of it was wrapped in a sense of security and shared trust. Months slipped by, filled with ordinary routines, occasional experiments with the hidden wardrobe, and plenty of heartfelt discussions. Gary's initial shock at discovering Linda's stash had long since subsided. In its place was a cautious willingness to see where this path might take him. He felt neither fully at ease nor ready to disregard it. He simply accepted that it was part of their shared world now. Linda, for her part, felt gratitude that Gary did not shut her out. She recognized that her approach had been flawed, that her meticulous secrecy might have driven a wedge between them. But it hadn't. Instead, it had led them to conversations they never would have had otherwise. Whenever Gary felt overwhelmed or unsure, Linda provided reassurance, reminding him he could always step back. She didn't push him to define himself in a new way. She only encouraged him to feel free in his exploration. Their relationship deepened through that process. They came to rely on honest communication, even when it was uncomfortable. They sat together on the bed one Sunday afternoon, sorting through the garments. Some of the items they decided to donate, realizing they didn't fit well or didn't feel right to Gary. Others they carefully hung up for nights when the mood struck. The act of making those choices together felt freeing. Each item they kept felt like a conscious decision. Linda placed the dark blue cocktail dress on a hanger, turning to Gary with a nostalgic little smile. "This was your first dress. Do you want to keep it?" He ran his fingers along the smooth fabric, recalling that night, how tense he had felt, how his heart had pounded. He nodded. "Yes, I guess I'll hold on to it. After all, it was the beginning of something new." She laid it gently in the closet, then turned to him. "We'll store it here, no more hiding, unless you want that secret panel for your own reasons." He chuckled. "No, I think I'm done with the secrecy. I like knowing exactly where it is." They finished organizing, then Linda sat on the bed, patting the space beside her. He joined her. The late afternoon sun slanted through the window, catching dust motes in its beams. "So," she said, picking at the edge of the comforter, "any regrets about this path we've taken?" He took a moment to let the question settle. Then he shook his head. "No regrets. It definitely wasn't what I expected, but I'm grateful we're still us." She lifted her eyes, studying him. "Still us," she echoed. "I like that." He placed his hand over hers. "I'm nervous sometimes about what other people might think if they found out, though. Does it worry you?" She considered it. "A bit, but it's our private life." We'll figure out how much we want to share or keep personal. The important thing is that we're open with each other." A smile curved her lips. "You once told me, early in our marriage, that as long as we communicate, we can handle just about anything. I guess that's true." He felt a sense of warmth. "We're proving it, day by day." Outside the window, evening settled in, bringing with it a quiet calm. Linda leaned against his shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her, thinking of how far they had come since the day he discovered that hidden panel. The life they had, once comfortable and routine, had been expanded by a new layer they never anticipated. It wasn't always easy. It carried its share of awkward moments, questions, and mysteries about what came next. But it was real, and it was theirs. Linda closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "I'm thankful you found that panel," she said softly, "even if my original plan was to show you later." He smiled, kissing the top of her head. "Me too." They stayed in that embrace for a long while, listening to the low hum of the world outside. Eventually, Linda stood and walked to the closet, pulling the panel open. She peeked inside once more, as if to ensure they had removed any lingering secrets. Finding nothing left behind, she let the panel slide back into place. "There," she said, glancing over her shoulder at him with a small grin. "Nothing hidden anymore." Gary rose, walked over, and laced his fingers with hers. The new normal they had shaped was far different than anything he would have imagined. But in that moment, he felt certain that they were walking forward together, sharing every piece of themselves in a way that brought them closer. He gave her hand a squeeze, and together they switched off the bedroom light, stepping into the rest of their life, whatever that might hold, side by side.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.